Have you ever been scrolling online and you just see the same boring intros over and over?
Yeah, definitely. I've been there.
Today we're going to dive into this article by Walter Bown called Effective Openings Are Essential to Hooking the Reader Early.
Hmm.
And he's this writing professor who's seen it all,
Right.
like the good, the bad, and then
Yeah.
just like the really cliche.
Yeah.
And we're going to be talking about how to write opening lines that really grab the reader's attention and make them want to keep reading.
What I really like about this article is that he doesn't just tell you what not to do,
Right.
but he actually gets into like the why,
Yeah.
like the psychology behind what makes a good or a bad opening line.
Yeah, and he starts off by talking about these things called platitudes, which are like those really obvious statements you've heard a million times.
Oh, yeah.
He actually calls them thought-terminating cliches,
Wow.
which I think is pretty accurate. It's
Yeah.
like, in today's society, communication is key.
Oh, yeah.
Stuff like that.
It's so funny because we say those things all the time, like in conversation.
Right.
But you're right. When you see it written down,
Yeah.
it's like, ugh.
It feels different.
It does feel different.
Yeah, it's like you said, it feels lazy.
Yeah.
It's like showing up to a potluck with a bag of chips you bought at the store.
Exactly.
Like, it's fine.
It's not going to wow anyone.
No.
No.
It's true, though. Like, readers have so many choices these days.
That's true.
That opening line, it's really your chance to make a good first impression.
It's your one shot
Yeah.
to prove that you have something to say.
So how do we escape this platitude trap?
Right.
Well, Bown offers a whole bunch of techniques.
Okay.
And one that really stuck out to me was anecdotes.
Okay.
He talks about how personal stories or even historical tidbits or even references to current events can instantly make your writing more engaging.
Okay.
And he even uses this really interesting example.
Okay.
He says, imagine starting an article about grammar
Okay.
with a chilling anecdote about a murder.
What?
How would you even do that?
I don't know, but I want to know more.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
That's a good hook.
Yeah.
That's how you grab someone's attention.
And then you have to tell them how it relates back.
Right.
But they're already hooked.
Exactly. And that's the power of a good anecdote, is even if it's not immediately clear how it relates to the rest of your piece,
Right.
it makes the reader want to figure it out.
Keep reading. It's
Yeah.
like you're setting them up for this little puzzle and they're already in.
Exactly. And Bound says that this doesn't just work for like articles or whatever.
Right.
He says you can use anecdotes in like essays, articles, speeches, all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Just to create that connection with the audience right away.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
He also talks about analogies,
Okay.
which I am always a fan of
Yeah.
because it's like, how can you explain this complicated idea using something that everybody already understands?
Yeah, like make it relatable.
Yes.
Yeah.
But he does say we need to watch out for what he calls false equivalencies,
Oh.
which is when you have an analogy that just doesn't really hold up.
Yeah.
He uses this phrase logical fallacies, which is kind of a mouthful,
Yeah.
but it basically means that the analogy is flawed.
Right.
And it actually weakens your argument instead of making it stronger.
Interesting.
So it's not just about finding any analogy, it's about finding one that really works.
Right. It has to be accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that quote. A good analogy is like a bridge. It helps you cross from the known to the unknown.
Oh, I like that.
And speaking of bridges, Bown connects this idea of theory and practice
Okay.
by showing us how famous authors do it.
Oh, cool.
So he talks about people like Langston Hughes,
Okay.
Sandra Cisneros,
Mm-hmm.
all these like big names.
Right.
And he analyzes their opening lines.
Oh, that's so smart.
I know, it's so helpful. Yeah.
It's like getting a masterclass from the masters.
Exactly.
You know?
Yeah.
Okay, so another thing he talks about is starting with a startling claim,
Okay.
which he says is like fireworks on the 4th of July.
Okay.
Like it grabs your attention right away.
It's like boom.
Yes.
Okay.
And he gives this great example from Gore Vidal.
Okay.
So Vidal wrote this essay about legalizing drugs.
Okay.
And it starts with the line, "It is possible to stop most drug addiction in the United States within a very short time."
Wow.
Right.
He's not messing around.
No.
He's going right for it.
I know. And it makes you want to keep reading to see if you can back it up.
Exactly.
And that's what a good opening line should do.
Right. It should make you curious.
It should make you react.
Yeah.
Like, I need to see where this is going.
And sometimes you can get that same effect with a little bit of humor.
Oh, absolutely.
But Bown has this great line. He's like, only if you're funny.
Right, of course.
Because bad humor is worse than no humor.
Way worse.
Yeah, so you got to be careful with that one.
Definitely.
He also cautions against using too many quotes.
Oh, interesting.
Because it's really easy to think that if you just throw in a famous quote,
Right.
it'll automatically make your writing better.
Yeah. Just sprinkle in some Shakespeare, you're good to go.
Right.
But it's like slapping a Band-Aid on a problem.
Right.
It might look okay from a distance, but it's not going to hold up.
It's not fixing the root issue.
Exactly.
Okay, so another technique he talks about
Okay.
is starting with dialogue,
Oh, cool.
which I love
Yeah.
because it's like you're just thrown right into a conversation.
You're already listening in.
Yes, exactly.
Love that.
And he gives this great example from this essay called A Crime of Compassion.
Okay.
And it starts with just one word, murderer.
Oh, my gosh.
Right.
Talk about starting with a bang.
You want to know who said it?
Yeah, who are they talking about?
What's going on?
Yeah.
And that's what a good opening line should do.
Exactly. It should create that intrigue right away.
Yeah.
Make you want to know more.
So we've talked about anecdotes, analogies, startling claims, a little bit of humor, maybe some dialogue. He also talks about using rhetorical questions.
Okay, those can be tricky.
I know they can be really hit or miss.
Right, because if you don't do it right,
Yeah.
it can just sound cliche.
Yes.
Like you're trying too hard.
Yeah, like something you'd see on like a motivational poster from the 80s.
Right. Exactly.
But he says that when they're done well,
Yeah.
they can be incredibly engaging.
Okay.
So he uses this example from this essay called Don't Let Stereotypes Warp Your Judgment.
Okay.
And it starts with this question. Is a girl called Gloria apt to be better looking than one called Bertha? And it makes you stop and think right.
It makes you question, like, where are you going with this?
Yeah, and why would he even ask that?
Right? Like, is there even a connection?
It's so simple, but it makes you think.
It does. And that's what a good rhetorical question should do, in my opinion.
Totally.
It should spark some kind of thought process.
It's not just asking a question to get an answer.
Right. It's more about getting people thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's like you're starting a conversation in the reader's mind.
exactly.
So one last thing that Bound talks about that I thought was interesting is using these short, punchy generalizations.
Okay, what's that?
So they're like these statements that are kind of broad,
Okay.
but they leave you wanting to know more.
Got it.
So he gives this example from an essay called I Just Want to Be Average.
Okay.
And it starts with this line, Jack McFarland couldn't have come into my life at a better time.
Oh, interesting.
So you're like, who's Jack McFarland?
Yeah, and why was it such a good time?
Exactly.
I mean, it makes you want to read more and find out.
And that's the whole point, right?
Exactly. You've hooked me.
And at the end of the article,
Yeah.
Bound uses this really great metaphor to kind of tie everything together.
Okay, let's hear it.
He says, think of this like fishing. If you want stuffed trout for dinner, you need to bait that hook with an attractive bait.
I love that analogy.
Isn't it so good?
It's so true, though.
It is.
Because you're right. It's all about attracting the reader,
Yes.
giving them a reason to keep reading.
And just like with fishing, there's no one right bait that works every time.
Right. You have to know your audience.
So you have to know what they're looking for.
Exactly.
So as you're working on your next piece of writing,
Yes.
just remember what Bound says.
Okay.
He says, the secret, of course, is never bore your reader.
That's such good advice.
It is, and it seems so simple, but it's so true.
It is.
So choose your bait wisely,
Yes.
and who knows, maybe you'll reel in a Pulitzer.
That's what I'm hoping for.
Leads